Hello everybody, I'm RG Marquez from KSAT.com and welcome to our Race for Seis Webcast where we discuss everything silver and black. And back in the saddle this week is, and no rodeo pun intended, Mr. David Sears.
You know what, we are ready for the rodeo road trip though. Got boots, jeans, shirts on, ready to go. Let's hope the Spurs are ready for their rodeo road trip.
Absolutely, but first, before we go there, let's go back real quick to Monday. David, it's been an interesting week for our San Antonio Spurs. I know everyone wants to move on from that beatdown in Oakland, but let's hear your thoughts on it first. What kind of went wrong?
You really want to relive that nightmare? What went wrong?
We need to sort of vent or discuss.
I'll tell you what went wrong. The Spurs didn't show up, period. They played like, I was like them. I didn't recognize the team out there. 26 turnovers. Marquez was a no-show. Well, I mean, you know, they weren't there. They just did not play very good. However, what I tried to tell people who would listen, anybody within earshot of me that was listening, it was one game. It's in the middle of the season. I mean, obviously the hype was much better than the game itself.
Oh, yeah.
It'll all change when the playoffs get here, so people should not get excited. It was one game. It was in Golden State. They did not have Tim Duncan. So, I mean, those 40 points the Warriors scored in the paint won't happen again if Tim's in the middle. So, it's one game.
Yeah, and talk about, I mean, a lot of people prior to the game when they heard Timmy was out, they were kind of like, well, you know, I think we're still going to have a good shot against him. But it may be the other sort of intangibles, you know, just kind of calming the team down on the road. They're all veterans, but at the same time, he's sort of the backbone of that defense. Speak to that a little.
He was the backbone of the defense, and like I said, I don't think they would have been able to just, you know, sashay down the lane like they were. I mean, you'd have had more, you know, Steph Curry hitting 37-footers.
Oh, yeah.
for his 37 points. But also, I couldn't figure it out. They're veteran guys, and they know how to play, and I don't know. Maybe they were reading the hype. I don't know what happened.
Possibly, yeah. And I think one thing to look forward, especially since we still have 3 more games against the Warriors, is that I think Golden State really played their A game, and the Spurs were D. Well, okay. You want to go F? I was being a little bit nicer, yeah.
However, they did have a film session. And everybody said it was a very long film session. And if, you know, you've heard these guys these players talk about Pop's long film sessions, it probably wasn't very pleasant. So, and then the way they responded against the Houston Rockets, you could tell it was a very long and
Yeah, and let's talk about that game, that Houston game real quick. Back at home, nice bounce back win for the Spurs. Marquez, double-double. Danny Green, 6 3-pointers. Do you kind of feel like they're sort of back in their groove as we head to Cleveland?
You go back through history, you go back through the history of the Spurs and in the NBA, there's usually a game or two, some moment that kind of turns things. And that Golden State game may be the moment that turns things. That film session may be the moment that turns things. I'll tell you one thing that turned it for Marquez when he turned off his social media and he said, I got to get locked in. Yeah. And I think everybody went, wow, okay, now he realizes where he is, who he's with, what team he's on, because he talked about that after the Houston game. Hey, I've never been in second place in the West. I've never been in a position to win a championship, and here I am. I mean, I don't want to give away any secrets, but the guy's got more than one phone.
Yeah.
You know, so he's got all the social media, and he says, it's time to get locked in, so he turned it off. So what does that tell you?
He's locked in now.
Serious.
Yeah, and I think, like you mentioned, probably that film session sort of brought out a lot of things. And, you know, a lot of people were sort of responding to that as, you know, Twitter backlash, social media backlash. But I like what he said yesterday about, you know what, he's in the top 2 team in the West. This is serious business now.
Yeah, it's time to go.
Absolutely. So now we look ahead to Saturday night's primetime game against the Cleveland Cavaliers, LeBron James. The Spurs beat the Cavs 99-95 at the AT&T Center earlier this season. David, what do you expect from this Saturday's matchup in Cleveland?
I have no idea. How do you fire the coach of the team that's leading the Eastern Conference?
Yeah.
How do you? I still
LeBron James, maybe?
Well, then he talks about, you know, how they're gonna have an up-tempo offense, and he talks about how he's not an up-tempo offense kind of guy. Yeah. So I have no idea. You know, usually a team, when they fire a coach or whatever, they'll respond and they'll start playing better. But I got no idea what we're going to see. I really don't. I would like to see Tim Duncan.
Right, that'd be nice, yeah.
But I got no idea what we're going to see from the Cavs.
Yeah, and speaking of Duncan, we know he's been out for the Warriors game. He was out for the Rockets game. He had an MRI on his knee. He was having soreness there. Kind of, what do you feel is going on there? I mean, do you think this is a little bit more serious than what we're led to believe here?
Old age. That's a lot of wear and tear on those knees. Got to give him a break. I mean, if there would have been something serious, we'd have probably found out about it by now. Hopefully there's not. Hopefully it's something that doesn't come up later on. But, you know, he's working with, what, 39-year-old knees?
Yeah.
I mean, he's been up and down the floor a lot of times on those knees, and he needs some rest. So they're rehabbing him, and he'll be ready when he's ready.
And finally, Coach Popovich was selected to be the coach of the Western Conference All-Stars this year. David, you know, you've been in the locker room with Coach Pop several times. How do you think he really feels about spending his All-Star weekend in Toronto?
Here's the funny part, is I think Steve Kerr came back in time so that Luke Walton wouldn't be the coach. So Pop would I don't know. I have no idea.
Do you think that's a little bit of
he might have done that. Yeah. Steve Kerr, here. I know you would rather be on the beach than at the All-Star game in Toronto, so here, watch this.
Yeah, or
I'm coming back
or something.
I have nothing to base that on other than who knows?
Yeah. And obviously, Coach Popovich said...
Good conspiracy theory, though.
Yeah, he said sort of the right things. You know, it's an honor, but, you know, this isn't his first rodeo. You know, no pun intended. I mean, but I think, you know, should have a good time up there.
Especially since the break is a little bit longer. You know he would rather be sitting somewhere other than Toronto. But, hey, he gets to go up there with Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting that LaMarcus was named as a reserve because his numbers are down this year, but it's kind of proven that he's sacrificed those numbers to be with the team, to kind of blend in with the team. I mean, what do you think about that honor, LaMarcus heading there?
First year with a Spur, and like you say, he had to change his game a little bit, so I think that's a pretty big honor for him. And I think he is an all-star, perennial.
Nice.
So, there you go.
Well, it's going to be a big weekend for the Spurs in Toronto. They're definitely going to be represented well up there. Well, that's a wrap for this week. Don't forget the Spurs and Cavs game will be on primetime live on KSAT at 7:30 tonight. And catch our Spurs special airing tonight before the game at 6:30. You can also follow everything Spurs related at ksat.com. For David Sears, I'm RJ Marcus. Have a great one, everybody.
Go Spurs, go!